people usually only see clear, open road. But we are the ones who arrive the moment disaster strike. Giant masses of twisted metal do not leave an accident scene on their own. They require calculations precise to the inch. Come with the recovery team through these grueling operations, and the final situation will leave you in disbelief. At the start of the week, the skies over Puebla, Veracruz were dark and heavy, as if ready to swallow the scene whole. After an overnight rain left the road slick, a Mack Anthem tractor with an 80,000-pound tanker trailer lost control and plunged into the grassy ditch beside the highway. Our recovery team quickly established a safety perimeter. Part of the roadway was shut down to make room for a heavy-duty Peterbilt 389 recovery truck, equipped with a rotating crane system capable of pulling up to 100,000 pounds. We waded into the wet ditch and threaded 5 8-inch steel cable through the anchor points on the trailer's front axle. The hydraulic winch engaged. The cable went tight. Not good. The axle was showing signs of overload. The strategy had to change immediately. The cable was removed and re-rigged to the Deering anchor points on the Mack tractor's chassis. The winch reeled in slowly. The wheels moved inch by inch, but the enormous weight of the tanker behind it still pinned the whole system down. We needed more force. A 70,000-pound Freightliner recovery truck was brought in behind the trailer. Steel chains were secured to the rear wheel assembly and locked tight with safety pins. The rear truck pulled the tanker's tail. The front truck held the nose in position. The winches turned. Chains tightened. Hold on. Under the combined pull, the rear of the trailer slowly climbed back onto the road. To recover the front section of the trailer, the crew constantly changed cable positions to optimize the pulling angle. Inch by inch, finally, the wheels touched the asphalt edge. Great. Right after that, the Mack tractor itself, after multiple cable adjustments, was finally pulled back onto the road as well. The two recovery trucks worked in smooth coordination, pulling and releasing in rhythm. Then the Peterbilt's underlift extended forward and locked firmly beneath the Mack's front axle, ready to tow the wreck away from the scene. Our clothes were soaked with sweat, but watching that 80,000-pound mass brought back to safety was reward enough. The next morning, 100-degree Fahrenheit heat poured onto Highway 10, turning the pavement into a skillet. Waves of heat rose into the air, covering a chain reaction crash involving a mangled DNF truck and a 45,000-pound Mercedes-Benz vacuum tanker lying on its side in the median. We moved the recovery truck in. The underlift slid deep into position and dragged the wrecked DNF away, creating space for the far more difficult task ahead. Look at that! Engine oil was spilling everywhere. The fire department had to lay absorbent mats and clean up materials across the roadway before we could begin. We called in a massive Liebherr LTM mobile crane with a lifting capacity of 100,000 pounds. At the same time, the team's yellow 4-axle DAF XF recovery truck, with an 80,000-pound winch pull, backed into position. Under the brutal heat, we used our bare hands to handle chains weighing dozens of pounds, threading them through the rear wheel assembly and locking them onto structural load points beneath the tanker chassis. Everything was ready. The yellow recovery truck connected a winch line to the chassis. Let's pull. The 45,000-pound steel mass slowly slid toward the middle of the road. Once the red tanker had been dragged clear of the median and rested fully on the asphalt, the rollover recovery began. 2 steel winch lines were extended from the yellow truck. At the same time, the lever crane lowered heavy-duty 5/8-inch steel chains, attaching them directly to 2 critical lifting points. The lines tightened. Tension. Suspense. One side rolled the truck upright, the other side controlled and stabilized it. The tilt angle dropped from 90 degrees to 60, then 45. As the tanker reached the point where gravity would take over, hold the line. Chains attached to the axles went tight. The crane operator released tension inch by inch, fully controlling the descent speed of the tanker. Lower it, slowly, carefully. The Mercedes stood upright once again and was then towed away from the scene. Night fell, and temperatures on Highway 405 dropped sharply. The cold cut through the air, a brutal contrast to the heat of earlier that day. The final crash scene of this work cycle involved a disabled Kenworth tractor. The trailer had already been separated, but the cab itself was destroyed. The front axle had been torn completely from the chassis. It looked catastrophic. The mission was split in two. Joe would handle the crushed cab, while I positioned the rotator crane to deal with the damaged chassis blocking the roadway. I operated the boom, slowly pushing the heavy chassis away from the recovery truck. The front axle and leaf springs had been completely crushed, making normal towing impossible. Joe had no choice but to crawl underneath and wrap heavy-duty steel chains directly around the bare frame. Dirty, dangerous, but the only way to remove this wreck. Just a few feet from us, traffic continued flying past in the darkness. The pressure was immense. We had to work fast, but mistakes were not an option. I pulled the lever. The crane lifted the shattered chassis completely off the ground and held it suspended safely in the air. Then another problem. The air system had failed entirely. Joe had to crawl underneath again and manually release the brakes so the wheels could roll. Next, he removed the broken drive shaft to make sure the truck would not seize during movement. The cab was finally hauled away. Now it was my turn. I lowered the rotator's hydraulic underlift and chained it tightly to the chassis. Broken debris scattered across the road was collected and stacked onto the frame itself. After relentless effort, we hauled the final remains off Highway 405. Another breathless night shift had come to an end. Every video we bring you is more than just work. It is a technical process carried out with responsibility and precision. We hope these real stories from the recovery world have given you a new perspective, and we'll be back with even more unbelievable scenes than these. See ya!